everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Sideline Breakdown, where it's real rugby chat with real fans, real passion, and real rugby. More than happy to welcome my guest, Mr. Rock Norris. Mr. Rock Norris, how are we doing this week so far?
Thank you, Kyle. No, I've been doing good so far. I've learned three things over this past weekend. There's three things that are certain in life. It's obviously death and taxes, and the third one is my prediction.
Yeah, well, I must say, I'm not sure if it's you or me, but I must say you've been spot on quite recently, so well done for that. I certainly give that to you. But yeah, I think there's some entertaining rugby this weekend. Obviously, the Champions Cup brought some real edge. You know, the Bulls, obviously, the South African side's taking it a lot more seriously, and I think we definitely saw that this weekend, except for the Sharks, maybe. But oh, I'm joking, obviously. But yeah, I think let's dive right into it. What did you make of this weekend's rugby? I think we sort of start with the Bulls and Bordeaux. What did you make of the game?
Yeah, so you want to start the show on a sour note, but no, it's fine.
You know, they always say the bad news before the good news. You know, so
Yeah, then we should have started with the Sharks. The Bulls is fine. Yeah, I think, look, it was a fantastic game of rugby. I mean, from a neutral's perspective, it was great to see, running rugby, high scoring game. So, in that sense, it was a great game. But I think, with regards to the results from a South African perspective, it's not ideal. The Bulls I think they had a good enough first half. I mean, you had a good halftime lead, but then in the second half, I mean, silly mistakes, stupid decision making by players leading to cards, and at the end of the day, costing you the games. Yeah, and I think some of the big name players not really pitching in that second half, so which was concerning. But I think we can touch on that. But yeah, that's just my summary of the game. And how was the game for you?
I agree. I mean, I think it's disappointing to let a lead slip, especially, I mean, halftime leading by 11 and, you know, 24 unanswered points, second half absolutely getting zero on the scoreboard is quite disappointing. And, I mean, I think, we all saw the bomb squad for the Bulls on the bench. I mean, you had Gerard Steenkamp, Johan Grobler, and Volkulo coming on, who easily get into a Springbok squad. Your main men, Volkulo being one of the top top performers of 2025. Steenkamp obviously coming back, but also seasoned professional Springbok has his place pretty much cemented in the Springbok side as well. I think Grobler has obviously been a consistent performer, experienced player. But it's like you said, I think a lot of the big name players didn't really show up in the second half, and a lot of mistakes. I think we let in quite easy tries, missed tackles. It was almost like we were a bit soft on them for some reason. And I mean, look, I think Bordeaux is obviously a very good side, very strong. But I mean, playing at Loftus with the quality of player that we had available to us, I think it's very disappointing. The result at the end of the day doesn't look good. And yeah, I mean, I think with Johan Ackerman, it doesn't make for good reading the last couple of games. Obviously, things haven't gone particularly well for him, and I think the Bulls have actually struggled in the second half for his first few games in charge, where we look good in the beginning, and then the second half comes, bench comes on, and we start looking poor. And it was actually in reverse. We almost started better than we finished, and the better players, your big name players, were actually the players that came on, which is extremely concerning. Um, so I'm not sure what's going on at the moment with the Bulls, but hopefully we can sort it out very quickly. I must say, I think the game was a very good advert for rugby, very entertaining. It was a case of, they score, we score, they score, we score, then we scored again, and then, it was really a back and forth, which was quite cool. All four wingers scoring tries in the first half. I mean, Kane and Moody's finish was absolutely brilliant. But yeah, no, some very good rugby, but I think the result for the Bulls is quite concerning. So yeah, let's hope we can
I,
sort it out.
I think just to add to that, I don't think it's just a couple of games that's been an issue. I mean, the last 7 games you've conceded 34 points, sorry, 34 tries, and that's almost 5 tries per game. So it's not like it's a recent issue. It's been from the start of the URC season that it's been like a big concern. The big question is what is going on with regards to your defense. I mean, how do you leak 5 tries per match? And yeah, I think that's probably the real concern currently is your defense. I mean, from the first game of the URC, we talked about it. Your defense was shaky, and now again, I mean, against the defending champs, I mean, you need to be rock solid with your defense. And for me, that's one of the biggest areas of concern. So the question will be, how will you fix it? And is it fixable within the next few games?
Next few games, highly doubt it. One thing I would say is I do agree. It's been a problem from the first game that Jan Ackerman actually took over. I don't remember who because he took over in the Currie Cup still. And I don't remember who we played that first game he was in charge, but we looked absolutely brilliant in the first half, and in the second half we just started leaking tries for some reason. I do think it's a consistent problem that we've had. Um, yeah, I don't think we've comfortably won a game since Jan Ackerman has took charge, and I do think it's a result as well to play devil's advocate of the type of rugby that he plays. You know, he does play quite expansive rugby, a lot of running rugby, so obviously there is opportunities there, and yeah, it is quite concerning. And I suppose the question is, a lot of the backroom staff that's with Johan Ackerman was with Jake White, and I actually agree that I know Jake White's obviously record was pretty decent, but I do think even under Jake White we did struggle a bit defensively at times. So yeah, I mean I've said it before: attack wins you games, defense wins you titles at the end of the day. So it's something that John Ackerman is going to have to sort out very very quickly. Um, on the question of is it going to get sorted out in the next couple games, I certainly hope so, but I highly doubt it. I think it's very difficult to implement the system that quickly and have that radical change in such a short space of time. Um, yeah, but I mean, with that being said, I think there was a couple times where we not really a defensive issue, but a player issue in terms of the player just misses an easy tackle. I remember again, I can't remember which try exactly. Mornay Smith missing quite an easy tackle where they managed to get quite a few meters over the advantage line, and they ended up scoring in the 22. I think we were just a bit soft, like I said, and it's mistakes like that against a quality side like Bordeaux is going to cost you, and obviously it proved to do so. Um, yeah, I mean we won the first half and we just absolutely capitulated in the second. So I think the issue of what's going on in the second half is a bit of a problem. Like I said, especially with the quality of player that we had come on, what's going on there. I think, yeah, I do think defense is an issue, but is it a mindset thing? Who knows? Like I said, I think it's something that John Ackerman is just going to have to fix quite quickly.
And I also think you mentioned the quality of players that you had coming on from the bench. And one of the issues that I saw during the game was that, in the first half, I think Andre Pollard controlled the game very nicely for the Bulls. But then in the second half, it was as if he didn't pitch up. I felt he and Willie LaRue had a shocker of a second half. I mean, basically the whole back line, I mean, none of them really pitched, specifically those two, because they are your senior players, your senior Springboks. They earn the big money to perform, in this high pressure situations. I think Jalabert and the wings of Bordeaux, they really performed in that second half, and they showed their class, their international class, and why they are highly rated. Where I think Pollard and Billy just took a back seat in that second half, and yeah, it really cost you the game. I don't know what you made of their performances this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was actually really positive about Pollard when he came back because it shows you, compared to someone like Egan Johannes, what a actual proper fly half, what difference uh, someone like that can make. And obviously, someone of Andre Pollard's caliber really showed what he could do in the first half. Yeah, second half. But I mean, again, I agree. The whole back line, and obviously Pollard and Villy is your generals. They're the guys who need to control the game, who need to control the tempo, who need to control essentially how we play, and it's two very important positions with a Springbok who is 100 tests. Pollard is comfortably, I'm sure he's over 50 now already, quite easily. So it is quite concerning again, but yeah, I don't think they were the only culprits to have dropped the quality of play in that second half. I think the Bulls in general just didn't look up to speed when it came to the second half. So yeah, look, I think yeah, it's Pollard's. With that being said, I think it's Pollard's first, not first game, but he obviously hasn't had a lot of game time recently with the Box or with the Bulls. So I think he obviously is coming back. So I think we give him a bit of grace for that. Villiers is still a massive concern because he has played quite recently. He's played, or frequently rather, he's played quite a lot for the Bulls recently as well. And I do think Villiers is a problem that has come from a long time ago. And I mean, I'm not sure what we're going to do there. Obviously, Curtly Ardense is hopefully back very soon, and we can stick him there at fullback. And I think the quality of play, I think that certainly will help the Bulls quite a lot. But yeah, uh, those two probably are no, sorry, Willie is a bit of an issue. I think Pollard, as soon as he gets up to speed again, I think we'll see a much different Pollard. And I think with that being said, obviously we had the conversation a couple episodes ago about whether Andre Pollard is able to play that sort of gameplay with the Springboks. I think the type of rugby that Johan Ackerman plays, I think we were able to determine whether he will be suitable for that type of gameplay as well, which is obviously very positive. So looking forward to that as well.
Oh, for sure. And that being said, do you think that the standard that the Springbok players specifically brings back to the Bulls are, that of Springbok quality? I've seen it now with the Sharks after the Rugby Championship, when the Springboks were back, and I mean, they lost at home against Scarlets, if I'm not mistaken. And, the same happens now to you. I mean, you almost picked the whole Bok front row that started against Wales with Ron Orkia, Ulrich Lowe. You know, it's your big guns, it's your big players. They're on the bench, they come on the field, and they don't make a big of a difference. So, do you think they bring the same quality to, the Bulls or the Sharks that they should do?
Well, I think it's actually a fair question. I mean, I think Rassie Erasmus would be very happy with that bench for the Springboks, even obviously possibly taking out Ambrose and Shavina Jacobs. But I mean, that's a bench that any club rugby side would dream of. So I mean, look, I think Volkulo obviously has proven even for the Bulls that he does bring his game. I think someone like Ibn Etzebeth, for example, even Sia Kulisi to an extent, Bongion Bonambi, I don't think they bring the quality to the Sharks that someone like Volkulo and Gerard Steenkamp and um, actually bring to the Bulls. Look, I'm hoping it's a one-off game that these guys didn't play well, but I think it's just my wait and see kind of situation to see whether they actually bring the same mentality and the same will to want to play for the Bulls that they do for the Springboks. And if they don't, I think it shows a mentality problem when it comes to some of the Springbok players, to be honest. Obviously, I think it's nice. Obviously, it's lucky to play for the Boks, under a coach who you probably would follow off a cliff, kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, these guys play for clubs who still pay salaries. Who you need to represent as much as you do for the box. So yeah, hoping it's a one-off game, but time will tell at the end of the day.
Definitely. I think It's difficult because I mean, just a week ago you played an international game, and then the next week you need to pitch up, play for your team, and bring your A game. So I can imagine it's not that easy, just switching from international rugby to club rugby and still trying to bring the same quality. So yeah, let's see. I mean, only time will tell, and I think if this is the trend that's going to follow, some serious rethink need to happen in the club scene, especially because then you need to relook how you will choose your sides and trying to pick the best possible team at the end of the day. No, I mean, a guy like Chandra Rudolph, he, for me, had an excellent game when he came off the bench, and he isn't your big Springbok player. So it just shows you that there's some players that just bring a different level when they are in the mix with the Springbok players. So it's maybe something to consider going forward. Pick that experienced players with a couple of other guys that could maybe bring the best out of them.
I mean, I think it's going to be a massive dilemma if that is the case, that these guys aren't willing or wanting to bring their A game to their club sides because they want to, I don't know, rest themselves or make sure that there's no injuries or whatever the case may be for the box. Um, because of the dilemma that a coach would have with players coming back, um, is you're picking these players because they're the best players you've got. I mean, let's be honest. So you pick them, they aren't willing to bring their game, but now you have to try and get them in because they are Springboks and they are obviously quality players, and you're hoping that they're going to bring their best. And if they don't, how do you really handle that situation? I think it's quite an impossible one. But like I said, let's just hope it's a once off. I think the problem with the Sharks is quite a prevalent one, which needs to be sorted out. So let's hope it's not the case with the Bulls as well. But yeah, I think let's move on to um, who do you want to move? I think let's go to the Stormers, the game of the week. The only South African side that actually won this
Mhm.
weekend. So well done to you. But yeah, let's move on to the Stormers. What did you make of the game?
I think also, same as the Bulls, I think the Stormers had an excellent first half. Their attack was excellent. I was surprised by the way that Khan and Clinton Swart played. I mean, they didn't have a lot of opportunities this season. I was a little bit surprised they were picked actually, but yeah, I must say they delivered this weekend. And yeah, I think the red card in the second half it hampered our attack and the ability we played, and we let Bayonne back in the game. But eventually, we finished the game as we started, and actually to see the way we dominated in our set pieces was good to see because our scrums were dominant. We were good in the lineouts. We were competing against their lineouts, and turnover ball we were exceptional. So I think it was overall it was a good game. It wasn't the complete package, but I can see that weekend after weekend we are improving a little bit. Building the momentum. So that's good to see. What was your take on the game?
No, 100%. I mean, I think again, if you dominate with the forwards, you're most likely going to dominate the games. I think you guys look very good. I was quite surprised with the picks that he made, but I mean, credit to them for what they did. I think Mkunu looked very good. His debut for the club. Obviously, Netling, fantastic. JJ, the scrum was very solid. I mean, look, I think someone like Paul de Villiers has to, if he continues the trend that he's on again, he really looks like a really good player. And Dion Ferry regen that he's essentially. But yeah, no, look, fantastic game, another fantastic game by Paul de Villiers. So well done to him. I think he's certainly putting his hand up for the box, and I'm sure he'll certainly get noticed. Look, I think Stormers are on a really good run at the moment, and I think where you guys are strong is your defense, which obviously the Bulls are not. And I think that really shows, considering the form you guys are in, I think it really shows what difference a really solid defense makes. And obviously on attack, you guys have the players to score tries. So if your guys' defense is on top, you have the players who's able to score the tries, and I think that's how you guys are winning the game. And a credit to Dobson again with the players that he has available to him. It's not the Springbok stars that's come back. He's using players at their strengths. He's using players that aren't necessarily the most well-known players in the world, and making them play really, really well. So yeah, I think on Dobson, obviously we've mentioned previously, well, you spoke, obviously they didn't have the best season, the Stormers last year. You mentioned that, maybe considering time for a change. What are your thoughts on Dobson? Has it changed at all? Yeah, how are you looking at him right now?
Look, the last time we spoke, we mentioned that he was sending his coaching team to different areas. I know some of them went to the NFL or NRL in Australia as well, just to see what they're doing there, get a few ideas, bring it back. So, I mean, that obviously worked. I mean, you could see there's a few different ideas, and there's a certain game plan that we've sticked from the beginning, and I think that has worked. Focus on your defense, build a strong defense, follow that up with a strong kicking game, and then attacking from turnover ball or mistakes from the opposition. And we've stick to the guns, and it's worked for us. So I think what they've done in the off season was obviously good. They had time to reflect. What's good to see is that they've learned from their mistakes, and they've learned from what has worked when we won the title, and they've brought that back. And yeah, obviously it's going well now. So, I mean, they've obviously brought in changes, not necessarily in the coaching stuff, but ideas and the way we need to play. So, look, I'm happy with that. As long as you can, learn from your mistakes and you can improve on that, then I'm happy. Yeah, I don't know what's your take on that.
No, look, I do agree. Like I said, credit to Dobson for what he's done so far this season. And like I said, I think he has a very good knack of finding players and getting the best out of them, although they aren't necessarily the best of the best of the best. So I think in that sense, it shows, Dobson is actually a very good coach. So yeah, let's hope he can carry on this trend of very good rugby for you guys. Another question I wanted to ask: is there any players that kind of stood out? Obviously, it wasn't your guys' strongest team, player for player. So, is there any guys that you thought really stuck their hand up for the first team, putting it in air quotes?
I think Nkunu really had an excellent game. He was my man of the match if I could have picked a player. Just the way his general play was, he carried the ball amazingly. His scrums was solid. So just the way he played and the impact he brought, I think, was excellent. And then another player that stood out, obviously Paul de Villiers. He also reminded me this weekend a bit of like a Marco van Staden, just the way he's built and the way he plays. Just his ability to also carry the ball. You wouldn't think that a smaller guy would be able to carry a punch like he does on attack. So, and obviously the amount of rucks he hits it's just crazy. So, yeah, I think he's an exceptional player. Um, and then, yeah, in the back line, as I mentioned, Clinton Swart, I think he had a solid game. He controlled the game really well. He attacked when we needed to, and his kicking game was also not that bad. So I think he really had a solid game. And from the bench, I think obviously JD Schickling had a good game when he came on. I think he really made a difference. Um, I don't think Connor Evans does the trick at lock for me. Like from the kickoffs, like every time they kick off, there's an issue, and he's the guy that should take the ball, and it feels like he doesn't really do the work he needs to do off the ball. So yeah, I think it's time that we should bring in JD in that starting position. And then yeah, overall I think obviously Khan had a solid game. There's obviously still a few things that he needs to sort out, like especially his distribution, because there was quite a few pauses that was wayward, you know, because I looked at Emrose Papi this weekend, and all his pauses is solid, it's in front of the player, they can run into the ball. There's no, they need to take it on the floor or behind their back. So It's just a few things that he needs to tweak. But yeah, other than that, I think, yeah, they played really well. And for you?
No, I agree. I think Clooney had a fantastic game, and I think his scrummaging has certainly improved. I don't think he was the best scrummager at the Sharks, so yeah, I think he is looking much more solid. I think for him right now is he needs to focus on his consistency to make sure. And I think obviously he was already in the box, so I'm sure Rossi will have an eye on him already. So if I think he can keep up this consistency, look good in the scrum, obviously he is a very mobile player, so that obviously is quite a big benefit for him already. So I think if he can get his consistency up or keep it, I think he'll be in the Bok reckoning. I think I've mentioned Paul de Villiers already a couple times. Fantastic player. I agree. He takes hits like an absolute champ, considering the the size of the man. Also very mobile, brilliant over the ball, strong with ball in hand, strong in the tackle. So fantastic game. And yeah, I think the halfbacks, like you mentioned, were really good. I think Clayton Swart actually put his hand up for. I'm not sure if he necessarily will, but I think he actually looked better than Yuri Matia, to be honest. So I think the benefit with Clinton Swart as well, you have an option at 10 as well as at inside centre if you need it. So obviously a bit of versatility there as well could be a benefit for him. But yeah, no, I think those are the players that kind of really stood out for me. Um, yeah, I think Stormers, like I said, Stormers had a really good game. Simaloni, that's what I wanted to ask. At fullback, how did he go for you?
I don't think he had the best game. You can see, like, position wise, he struggled a bit in a few instances. Yeah, I don't think he's the solution at fullback because currently we have a few issues. I mean, if Warwick Holland isn't available and Damien Willems isn't available, then we're a bit short at fullback. Yeah, it's a bit of a worry. Look, he's obviously a solid player and he's solid on attack. He's got an eye for a gap. In that sense, he brings a different dimension from fullback. But yeah, I still think his best position is outside centre, to be honest. Yeah, and I mean, next weekend we should have our Springboks back, so I don't think we should have that issue again. So I just think we should think about another solution if Galant and Willems isn't available.
I think I've never really rated Simaloni even when he was at the Bulls, but I agree that I think outside centre is his position. Obviously, Dobson made a play that with Holland not being available, kind of probably didn't have much of an option to be fair. So yeah, I suppose his benefits are obviously on attack. He's much better there. Defense has always been shaky, which is a problem. So yeah, I do agree. If those two players aren't available, I think you guys do have a bit of an issue. But I suppose as a stopgap, he's not the worst option in the world. But yeah, I think let's move on and carry on quickly over to the other games. Um, I think let's go from bad to worse. The Lions. How did you see their game? Any players that stood out for you? And what do you think the future is for the Lions, really?
Well, the future for the Lions is to get a different coach. As plain as that. I mean, yeah, I've been outspoken about that. So, look, they didn't have a good game. And that's a problem about the Lions. I mean, they are playing excellent rugby the one weekend and then the next they are just lackluster. Doesn't look as if they want to play. And, yeah, it's just signs of not a quality team, but the problem, or my problem, is they do have a quality team. They shouldn't be in the Challenge Cup, they should be in the Champions Cup. They have a quality side, they have the best youngsters in the country. And I mean, the current crop of players are now experienced youngsters, so they should be able to play for that top spot in the ULC, play in the Champions Cup, but they're not consistent enough. So that's a problem. And I mean, from the start of the game, they were lucky for me in that first half to lead at halftime because I mean they scored a lucky try, and just their decision making isn't what it should be, because there was an instance in the first half there at a penalty. It was 40 meters out in front of the post. Chris Smith would slot it with his eyes closed. Then they go for touch, lose the line out. Then they get a penalty 5 meters from touch, 40 meters out. Then they decide to go for posts. Then he misses it. Just small things like that. I mean, at that level, you should not make that errors. You should take the easy point, work hard, then eventually you will be rewarded with tries. So, yeah, that's just my take on it.
Any players that kind of stood out for you?
Not really, to be honest. I think Morne van der Berg didn't really have a good game. Forward wise, yeah, I don't think there was really someone that actually stood out for me. Yeah, I just think it was like a poor performance overall. Even in the backline, they didn't really have that ascendancy. When things didn't work out, they kicked, but they didn't kick well. So, yeah, no one really for me. I don't know about you.
No, I agree. I don't think anyone had a standout game. I thought Ruan Venter carried the ball quite well in terms of forwards, but other than that, there's nothing really to write home about. One player I would actually like to mention quickly, and new player, so you can give your 2 cents on him as well. The winger Kelly Peku or Mpefu, something like that. First noticed him in the Curry Cup, where I thought, okay, he looked quite decent. Had a really good game against the Bulls. He looks like I'm not going to say a world beater, but like quite a promising player. He's obviously very quick, strong with ball in hand. So, yo, what do you make of him?
Look, he's obviously got a lot of things to work on. He looks hungry, he looks for work, which is obviously great from a winger. That's what you want, because he had the ball quite a lot of the times, but he currently doesn't have that X factor. Tight spaces, he doesn't really look as if he knows what he wants to do. And on a few occasions, he tried to, run over the guys, but then there was dominant hits because he's not the biggest player. But he has speed. I must give that to him. He's quick. So obviously, when there's space and the try is scored from the kick chase, you can see that they can utilize him in that way. But he just lacks that X factor, that Kurtley Orange or Chethan Colby has to make something out of nothing. So yeah, that's just my take. Yours?
No, look, I think he looks promising. Like I mentioned, I don't think obviously he's still very raw. I mean, he only started playing for the Lions this year in the Curry Cup, really, where he got noticed, and um, yeah, I think for a breakout season, it's actually pretty decent. We'll see whether he's able to. He reminds me a bit of his actually Madosh Tambo when he came through. Obviously, very quick. Agree that he didn't really have the X factor, but he had a lot of gas, and that's kind of what he used as his strength. And I mean, Madosh Tambo when he was at the Bulls later on in his career, he looked really really good. So I'm not saying he's necessarily going to follow the same trend as Madosh Tambo, but he could well be that sort of player. And yeah, like I said, with ball in hand, he looks quite strong. So yeah, hopefully maybe another player to consider, keep an eye on. But yeah, I think let's move from the bad to worse. The Sharks. How was that game? How was that game for you?
When I saw their team, I knew, they will be getting a hiding. So, I mean, to send your Curry Cup team and expect a result from such a big game is insanity. So, I didn't have high hopes for them. There was a period in the second half where they performed well, where they had a few chances that they couldn't get over the line, which would have kept him in the game. But essentially, Toulouse is half of the French team, so their quality came through at the end of the day. Still, the big issue for me is, and I think this is a talking point or more of a rant, but I would like to hear your opinion, is the South African sides, and now specifically the Sharks, picking a B or a C side to go play overseas in the Champions Cup. I mean, this is probably the best club competition in the world. It's like it's a big honor, firstly, to play in a competition like that. And then you pick a B or a C side to travel and expect a result in Toulouse. And if you don't expect the result, I mean, why are you playing in this competition in the first place? I mean, yes, it will be difficult to beat Toulouse in France, but surely you should have the confidence to pick a side and expect them to win there. I mean, what else are you doing if you don't expect them to win? So this has been a trend, I think, for the past 2 or 3 years where we pick B and C sides to go and play there and we lose badly. So yeah, I don't know. What's your take on that?
I mean, look, that irritated me with Jake White that he couldn't take this competition seriously for whatever reason. And I mean, it's like when it comes to soccer, the Champions League essentially. You're playing clubs from all over the world, or obviously Europe, but I mean, you're playing some of the best teams in the world, and you do send a second string side for. I mean, I can't even really think of an excuse, to be honest with you. um, Obviously JP Peterson's taking over, but I mean, I really can't think of an excuse of why you would send a side like that. I don't think they were expecting a result at all. Um, I don't know whether it was a let's see who puts their hand up and we kind of try them. I don't know. The one positive I would take from the Sharks' point of view is actually I think Ross Brody had a very solid game. Obviously created the first try, scored a try of his own. He obviously looked positive, especially considering Grant Williams is probably leaving. Jaden Hendrickse is not having a fun time at all either. So they're probably going to have to look at someone like that they can keep in their ranks and hopefully build with him, I suppose. But yeah, it is a frustrating thing to see that the Stormers and the Bulls put out, really strong sides and probably the strongest team that they could possibly put out. And then the Sharks come and, probably didn't even have a first teamer. Not that I can think of. Mapimpi was there, but obviously there's a debate to whether he's past his prime now as well. But yeah, I think it's very disappointing. I think the Sharks have been very disappointing this season. It's not a good thing to see, especially considering the talent that the Sharks have in their ranks.
But I mean, surely the Champions Cup isn't a platform where you want to see which guys can put up their hand. I mean, you should use the Curry Cup or URC games at home to see, look, all right, this player is putting up his hand, let's pick him, or whatever the case may be. But I mean, you almost have the whole Springbok squad at your disposal, to pick and to maybe send to France and see whether they can win the game or not. Obviously, they are coming back from a long international season, but pick them for this big match in France, and then when you're back at home, you can give a few guys a rest and then take it from there. But I mean, the Champions Cup shouldn't be a competition where you can see who can put up their hand to play in the URC. It's not that type of competition. Surely you should be playing every game to win and ultimately to win the competition.
Oh, look, I completely agree. Like I said, I really can't think of an excuse of why they would do it. It's the only possible reason I could maybe see. And I think the problem is South African sides do have a history of not sending their strongest team to the Champions Cup. So, they could have used that as an excuse, which, I mean, like I said, it irritated the living hell out of me when Jake White did that to the Bulls. I mean, Jake White did it with a quarterfinal. I mean, how bad is that? So, yeah, I don't know whether it's a change in structure or coaching staff, or was it they knew they were going to lose the game, so they'd rather do it with their second string side than their first string side, which I think is a bit of a joke because, I mean, I really don't think the Sharks have a first or a second string side based on the form of the players at the moment. And, these guys really need to start putting up their hand if they want to, win the side. Obviously, you have players that are better than others, but I mean, if that was the case, then there'd be a lot of players who made it and didn't make it based on just off of talent. These guys need to start working hard and showing what they can do. Otherwise, I think their careers are going to go down the toilet. So, yeah, I think it's really disappointing to see from the Sharks. But I suppose we'll see how they like now with the new play with JP Peterson obviously taking over. I think it's a big step for him. I don't think he's necessarily proven much as a coach yet. So I think the job for him, personally, in my opinion, may be slightly too big. But I'm not gonna say he's gonna fail. Let's hope he can pull something right there with the Sharks. And yeah, speaking of, and I think we can somewhere use this to end it off. JP Peterson, how do you think he's gonna actually do?
I understand that he's only there on a temporary basis for the season while they are considering their options for next season because Plumtree would have finished the season with them. So he's their current option. So yeah, I think it's just a case of, keeping the current coaching group that's still there, in charge because they obviously have their plans and their structures and so forth. So it's not a big change in the way they will play. So I don't see them, changing anything really in the way they play, the squad they pick. I mean, obviously Plumtree is still there in a consultancy basis, so I don't think anything will change. I think it should carry on as it is. The only thing is whether you will be able to get the players to perform it as they should. So yeah, I mean, it can't get worse from where it's currently. I mean, it's a good place to start for him. So I mean, it can only go better from here. So yeah, I think that's just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I know, because I saw John Plumtree say that he obviously took a step back for I'm not sure if it was the pressures or whatever it is that he decided to take a step back. Um, but I mean that's the thing is you keep the same coaching staff. What's going to change? Is it? I mean I don't really understand the logic unless it was Plumtree saying that I don't want to be head coach anymore for whatever reason. I mean he's still part of the coaching staff. He's still going to have a big say. Doesn't really make sense. So yeah, I mean personally I probably would have tried to change quite a lot and see what I could salvage for the rest of the season. I mean it is still quite early. If you want to tell me that we're gonna let's keep everything the same, all we'll do is we'll put JB Peterson instead of John Plumtree as the face of the Sharks. I mean, what's gonna change? I think there's drastic changes that need to happen, and I think it is like you said, it's I don't think much is going to change. I think the thinking there is just flawed. For yeah, it's not very good, and I think the Sharks in a very bad predicament at the moment.
No, no, definitely, and I think another team on the same trajectory is the Cheetahs. I mean, we can also mention them because they lost against Sale Sharks. It was a good Sale Sharks, but I mean, the Cheetahs aren't where they were a couple of years ago. So, yeah, what's your take on that? How can they change their season? How can they, get back to where they were? I mean, I saw a comment that the Griquas and Pumas are currently better than the Cheetahs and they are better coached. So, yeah, what do you think of that?
I mean, look, I've always said it's sad to see what's happened with the Cheetahs. I think they've been let down by SA Rugby, considering they got kicked out of Super Rugby. Fair enough. They entered the European scene first, them and the Kings, obviously. And when SA Rugby decided no, everyone's going to go to Europe, they said to the Cheetahs, okay, well, you guys are out again. And obviously, I understand the revenue that comes into the Cheetahs isn't as powerful as your bigger sides. I mean, I think the lowest is obviously I think the lowest is the Lions, and they still bring a considerable amount more than the Cheetahs. Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's sad. I don't think they're gonna get anywhere anytime soon. I do agree that the Cheetahs and the Griquas, um, and I mean, I think you can even argue Boerland are headed past the Cheetahs as well. Yeah, I hope they can do something, but I highly doubt it. And I don't think they're getting much help from SA Rugby either, which I think is pretty poor. I think we've mentioned it obviously on a previous episode where, if we can get some of these smaller teams, the Pumas, Cheetahs, Griquas, into another international competition, I think it will do SA Rugby as well as these franchises very good. And I mean, Bloemfontein always has, the crowds will come because they want to see their team play, which they're obviously not doing much of now recently. And yeah, I think SA Rugby really needs to consider putting a bit more time into these smaller teams, because I think that'll just bode well for SA Rugby in general. It'll bring money in, it'll bring sponsors in, and obviously it'll bring in some TV money as well. Because us South Africans love watching rugby, so why would you not want to watch these teams play against other international teams? I think it'll be great.
Yeah, I know for sure. I completely agree with that assessment. And yeah, that's the end of our show. Thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Listen to us on Spotify and follow us on Facebook. And then, yeah, see you next time. And hopefully, Carl's prediction would be a bit better.
100%. And let us know what you thought of this weekend's games. How do you think the Bulls are going to be able to pull everything back? Do you think the Stormers will be able to continue their trend? And how are the Sharks going to be able to resurrect their season? And give us an opinion on what you think of our, how do you say, solution to the Cheetahs problem. Do you think getting some of these smaller teams into international tournaments would be a good thing? And how much time do you think SA Rugby really needs to put into them? But Mr. Rock Norris, I want to thank you for joining me tonight, and hope you have a good one further.
Until next time.
Until next time.